Recording started.
Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Community's Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 531. My name is Eric Nelson, and with me today I have my regular co-host, Matt Lungeth. Today is Wednesday, October 21st, 2020. Matt, how you doing today?
Eric, I am well. I'm coming to you live from the Outer Banks of the Carolinas. So I have my own Bay report as I look out at the Atlantic today. Things are absolutely beautiful down here. Almost 80 degrees. Just saw two fighter jets from what was probably Langley or Norfolk Naval Station, and couldn't ask for more. But that's enough about the Atlantic. How things are out there on the West Coast, and what's the color of the Bay in the Pacific?
The Pacific is a beautiful, sunny, kind of cooling off day today. We had some hot weather, but it is sunny and pretty. No more fires blowing smoke around. But I do have a daughter that went out to Colorado to escape some of the COVID-19 in San Francisco, and of course she's embattled in now another fire zone with tons of orange smoke and stuff going on. But California's been really nice the last few days, and expected to cool off for the Halloween season. So things are almost coming back to normal now. At least I should knock on wood right now and say that maybe we'll get some nice weather. Color of the Bay is typical for coming into November. It is just an off green with a light wind chop, makes it choppy, greenish, blustery day for the Bay Area here. And with that, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is the topic is going to be the Influencer 100 group, as well as vExperts. We're coming into the season of vExpert applications. So we did harness Corey Romero to come talk to us, even though he's busy with the VMTN community upgrade project that's been happening. And we got Tony Foster live too. So if you want to check us out and see what our home offices all look like, you can go to youtube.com/vbarbecue and give us a like and a follow if you want to see what we look like. We just post these up there as well. And Tony Foster, good to see you on the video screen as well today.
It's great to be here. It's fun.
Yeah, I got to say that your lag out there in Kansas somewhere is pretty heavy. But today, having you in this new platform is a little bit better as well, real time. So that's what's happening. So Matt, before we get into the topics, I guess we should talk a little bit about news that's happening. I got some news. I don't know, Matt, if you got any news that's worth talking about. Maybe you can go look at the Vmug, vmug.com and see what's happening with Vmug. But we're winding down from VMworld. Obviously, all the VMworld stats were up, and the most interesting stat that came out of VMworld was social media posts were down by 50%. Year over year. So as we'd expect, most people sitting at their desk watching all of the activities that are going on with VMworld are not sitting around on their mobile phone tweeting about what conference session room they're stuck in or how bad the food is or things like that. So social media posts in general were down by 50%. So that's interesting in its own right, but we attribute that to the fact that people aren't walking around a conference with their mobile phones, tweeting at each other, what's actually happening, like come go see this, go see that. But video views, video consumption was up like 400%. So you can imagine that more people were sitting around their desks consuming videos, and of course, video consumption was way up, and that was to be expected as well. Sentiment was good. Other wrap-up things for the event, not very many things. It was a great event. Lots of sessions consumed. Lots of positive feedback on sessions. And yeah, that's basically what we experienced over the last week rolling up vmworld.com. Coming up, we have an online event happening. It's going to be called a networking event. I forget the name of the event, but it's in early November. So we'll be talking about it. So watch out for the networking event. You can go to vmware.com and register for the networking event. They have some speakers there. They're going to, I think Pat's talking, and Velo Cloud and some other executives are going to be talking about the networking event. So you can go register for the networking event. We're going to be doing a call out to vExperts to do some blogging on the networking event that's going to be happening. And I think they're just going to go over VMware strategy for, hybrid cloud networking to edge networking to everything networking, even the big cloud vendor networking and how to do all that. So doing a cloud networking event, and I assume there will be some conversations of what's new in networking for VMware. So we're driving to Reg for that, and should be something fun to do in mid-November, and we'll get you that date before the end of the show. And with that, Matt, do we have anything else that we want to talk about before we jump into with Corey and Tony?
Eric, we do. You had brought up Vmug events, and two key ones between now and the end of the month. So tomorrow, on Thursday the 22nd, we have the Canadian Vmug Virtual UserCon with Chris Wolf doing the keynote. And then the following, let me see, the 29th. So the following Thursday, we have the Atlanta-Nashville Vmug UserCon with Amanda Blevins doing the keynote. Both of those events, as with any of the user cons within the Vmug platform, absolutely free. I would encourage everyone to go to vmug.com and look at that and look at those schedules. Some great community events, some great community speakers. I'm sure that diving in depth to all of the announcements that we have seen coming out of Vmworld. So two big events there.
Right. And I know that Kit Colbert is going to be on our show next week to talk about the IT career roadmap, a book that they put together. So he's going to come talk about it. And I think they were doing a Vmug live streaming event. Don't know if that's happened or not. Maybe that's already happened, but I think that was another thing.
We have a special date and time for Kit, I believe, next week.
Yes, we do. We are going to be doing Friday, I think at 11 a.m. On a Friday, or maybe 1 p.m. on a Friday. I can look at my calendar. And in the meantime, the networking event is called the Modern Network for a Future Ready Business, right? So it's an on-demand networking and security for modern applications event. It is November 16th at 11 a.m. PST. So you can go to vmware.com. Right on the front banner is a registration for the Modern Network event. Go check that out. Right. And yes, we're having Kit next week to talk about that special date, Friday. And I will get the date for that. I think that's, what else do we got? I think that's it for what's happening. A little bit of announcements. There have been some reorgs in marketing at VMworld. So we have, at VMware, we have been living through some of those. No major changes, but some reorging. But the community and social media teams remains intact, still working for the same VP. So we're all happy about that. It's always good to get through these things. We did get a new CMO. So our new CMO is Carol, I don't remember Carol's last name. How bad am I? Right.
Carol
Carpenter, that's right. Carol Carpenter. So Carol Carpenter
joins us from Google, correct?
That's right, from Google Cloud, to take a look at how VMware can market more to cloud services. So she's putting her stamp on things now, and it does some really good work reorging around and consolidating some of the stuff that we've had duplications from cloud marketing. If you've ever been to cloud.vmware.com, we kind of had a whole cloud marketing group, and we've consolidated that into different business unit marketing areas. And so I really like what she's done there. So a lot of fun there. And with that, I think that's all that's been going on from my perspective. And then we're getting ready for 2022. So 2022 planning. So lots of work there going on. All right, with that, we'll transition. So Corey Romero one of the two topics for today is vExperts, and the second one is what we've been talking around the Influencer 100 Club. So maybe we'll start with vExperts. Maybe I'll do an opening first. Let me do an opening of what the influencer is. We'll do vExpert first, and then we'll get to the Influencer 100. But the people have heard about this thing called the VMware Influencer 100 Club, and what that is a private club that we've been putting together that we're inviting people that use Dynamic Signal. Dynamic Signal has a leaderboard on it that will show you who is using Dynamic Signal. So if you're a vExpert, we give everybody access to Dynamic Signal, which is our publishing tool that publishes and shares social media content to everyone. And they have a leaderboard on that tool that every quarter or every half a year, I forget which, we send out prizes to people that actually end up on the leaderboard. But what we've seen is the same 100 people are always on that leaderboard year after year. So what we decided to do, instead of sending out prizes, which some of these guys have gotten the same prizes a couple times in a row, we would create a club that really allows us to showcase and use those Influencer 100s. And what does that mean? It means that it's not you're a content builder, which is what vExperts do, but the Influencer 100 is really focusing on people that have a lot of followers and influence a lot of people. So you might not ever create content. And Corey, I know we've talked about this. There are some of these people that create these websites and blogs that all they do is share other people's content, right? Which is a legitimate marketing activity, but it annoys the vExperts because we give vExperts these awards, right? And we give these people that make these blog aggregators award, the vExpert award, but it really kind of taints the vExpert program because we're giving them a vExpert, saying you're a vExpert, when really you're not a vExpert. You're just an influencer, right? You're creating kind of a communication site. And so really the influencer program, the Influencer 100, is about the idea that there are influencers who are creating influential properties, but they might not be producing content. They're not really a vExpert. But how do we say, hey, you are doing a service, you're influencing others, but you're influencing others using channels, using distribution, using followers, but not necessarily a vExpert. So I think that's what we're trying to do with the Influencer 100. So we're going to be talking about, the Influencer 100 and who is, gotten the Influencer 100. The odd thing about the Influencer 100 is that once you get invited to it because you've got a large influencer following, you're active for 3 years. So there will actually be 300 influencers in the program, because once you're influenced, you've made it on that leaderboard, you're doing a lot of that posting, then and retweeting people's content, because if you look at Dynamic Signal, that's what it is. It's retweeting other people's content and pushing it out through your social channels. And then some of these people get more and more followers, and they do that. So the Influencer 100 Club will actually be a club that'll maybe be 300 to 500 people, depending. And then after 3 years, if you're not being an influencer anymore, you fall out of that club. And you do get a plaque, right, that says you influence X number of thousands of people, right, per year. So there you go. That's the Influencer 100. But now we'll come back to vExperts, which is, for me, a program that you are a content builder, you are blogging, you are presenting, you're writing books, you're doing the heavy lifting of creating that content. You're just not an influencer retweeting. You're actually doing that. And for me, the vExpert program is a much heavier program, a much bigger program, many more people doing that kind of heavy work. So Corey, I know we're coming up to the end of the year. What's the status of the vExpert program these days?
Yeah. So, man, you go from influencer to vExpert, right? And my heart just gets warm, right? I've been with this program for 7 years now, and I just absolutely love it and love the people in it. One of the things I did miss about the vExpert program was actually meeting the vExperts in person at VMworld this year, right? But yeah, the status currently of the vExpert program, right? So we're coming up to the end of the year, and what does that really mean? Well, we do the vExpert applications on a calendar year basis, right? We actually do it every 6 months, but the vExpert program runs on a calendar basis, right? And so November 20th, we'll be opening vExpert applications, and those are going to run through January January 8th. And kind of the reason why we do it that period of time is what we're going to do is once the applications come in, we're actually going to look at all of the activity for 2020, right? So that gives us a little buffer into January to get everything that you've done into December into the application. Right. And then from there, we'll have the voting period open, and that's where the vExpert pros come in and do the voting. And they vote by region, right? So if you got vExperts in the United States, those vExperts will actually vote on applications in the United States. And so the voting ends on February 10th. And we will do an announcement February 11th, and that's when we post on vmworld.com as well as blogs.vmware.com/vExpert. We'll post all of the award winners, right? So looking forward to that. And then a week after that, we will open up the business unit led subprograms. So we've got quite a few that will open up a week after. And to be able to get into those programs, right? Those are really specialized programs run by the BU. So you've actually got direct access to the business units. You have to be a vExpert. So if you have any interest in going into those sub programs, I would definitely advise to go to vexpert.vmware.com, read about the program, sign up for the pre-announcement list. And what we do is once we open the applications, I will email you. There's no spam. There's no marketing sign up lists. It'll be 1 or 2 emails just reminding you that, hey, we're opening applications. If you want to go apply, here is the application link. Now, if you're new and you have not applied, I would recommend going to vexpert.vmware.com, and you can go and you can find current vExperts, and you can find them in your region. So if you're from, so it's you're from France and you're looking for a vExpert that speaks French, you can go to the vExpert directory, find a vExpert Pro that speaks French, and you can work with that vExpert to help guide you to what you need to do to be approved for that program. Now, remember, those vExpert pros are voting on your applications. So you'll have direct contact with someone who votes on your application. So yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait. This is one of my favorite times of the year. We get a lot of applications that come in. We do a lot of work, and yeah, I mean the vExpert pros do the heavy lifting in the application process, and I highly appreciate them. And my hat's off to those guys and women. So I'm excited, Eric.
Yeah.
So, Corey, let's just say I'm a newly minted vExpert from just this past summer, the mid-year application, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't apply this time last year, but I applied over the summer, and I got in. Do I need to apply for this particular period?
You know, Matt, you do. Kind of the reason is we look at everything from the prior year and we refresh the program in the beginning, in the new year. So 2021, we will do a full refresh. We remove everybody from the program and we look at all the applications and bring everyone in. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because kind of the reason why we do this 6-month is for the folks who didn't make it into the program, you've got a buffer period to go in and do some more work or do the correct things in your application and in your communities to get that award in the second half of the year, right? Or let's say you missed the application period, you can apply again in June.
Okay, so just to be clear, if I got in at the June application period, that does not extend me for another calendar year. I need to be looking for when those applications open up on the 20th of next month to start to put my application in to get awarded at what we're trying to shoot for that second week of February.
Absolutely. Yes, you will need to apply again.
So the interesting thing that I am experiencing here, and just thinking through this was an interesting 2020 year, right? COVID was here. The Vmug meetings are canceled. You know, everything's just online. I think we probably should, talk to code coaches a little bit and maybe be a little bit more forgiving this year between if you had a 2020 vExpert award, that maybe some of these just flip where maybe we're a little more forgiving on evaluating people, because the reality is I don't think there was as many opportunities to do, engagement with Vmug meetings, to doing things with customers, to everything,
Right.
because we've all been digitally locked down. Part of it being evangelist is leather on pavement, right? Where you're out and about engaging with people. So there probably we will have something from a 2020 perspective that, makes the rule set a little bit lighter, right? Because looking at what you did the year before and then trying to also look at maybe what you did this year, right? Do you think that's something I'm just thinking out loud here, right? Like my guess is we should probably do something like that.
Eric, absolutely, right? We have a lot of vExperts that don't always do blogging, right? Like that's the typical thing, as you're a vExpert, you do blogging. That's not really the case, right? We have a lot of vExperts who do sessions at Vmworld, right? And a lot of in-person things. We've got, quite a few people who, run Vmugs, right? So Vmug leaders receive the vExpert award if you're an active Vmug leader. Well, that's really difficult in 2020 with COVID, right? Because how do you really do that, unless you're doing something digital? We've got folks who speak at VMworlds, right? Or at the Vmugs who do sessions. So absolutely, we'll be taking a look at that. We will definitely take that into consideration. And I agree that we will be a little bit more forgiving and probably re-up some of the folks who had the award last year, did a lot of speaking in-person engagements that were not able to do that this year.
Yeah, I think that would be a generic. If you had a one in 2019, right? Like 2020, you should probably just went, like I was stuck at home at COVID. Right. And I have a feeling we're like, all right,
we should make that a little drop down.
Yeah, we should have a drop down, and it does make it a little bit more challenging for new people that didn't make it but are interested in. I think we should probably be forgiving to everybody by about 30 or 40%, because it's just, again, social is down 50% because it's a weird world, right? It's definitely a weird world, and there are people that participate. But you should do some participation, right? You can, if you do blog, you should be able to blog. There were some online events. You can talk about what you did online, right? To make it, to be in it, to be a vExpert producing some content. Even if even I think we should probably, and we're doing this in real time, guys, just chatting through this, right? But it's a good time to do it. We should probably consider, if you just did education this year, right, to get ready for next year, because I know a lot of people have spent time just building their home lab, right, and installing some new products, and bringing yourself up to speed with vSphere 7 and Kubernetes, right, and Spherelets. So I think we should have some criteria that said, if you were a previous vExpert and you did spend time bring up your lab and learning new skills to set yourself up for 2021, that even that kind of stuff should probably be something you can put in an app, because I think just 2020 is such a special year, right, that it's going to be hard. And then I think in previous years, we've also had lighter criteria. If you were already somebody that was a vExpert, we try to look to make sure you've been doing stuff in the last 3 years to make sure you haven't fallen off, because some people fall off, and then we give them warnings going, hey, you're not a warning. You have, last year was super light. You better be careful. Right? Yep. On occasion, when people drop out, are they kind of surprised that when they don't make it, and then you get the escalation, and then you show them, look, you were good the last 3 years ago, you're medium 2 years ago, last year you had no heartbeat, and then this year we just decided, forget it, you're not. And some people are surprised by that, right?
Yeah, it's a very few amount. There's actually been quite a few people that have emailed back and said, yeah, I kind of expected that. I haven't really done much in the past year and a half. But yeah, those of the experts who have been around quite a while, we will definitely start to see, not all of them, right? This is just the ones we're talking about. We'll start to see them tick down a little bit. Maybe they changed jobs. Maybe they had a life event, So yeah, we do allow some sort of little bit of a buffer zone for that. But once we start to see you completely just tail off, most of them are understanding. Or I've even had some vExperts email me and say, hey, I'm not going to apply this year just because I haven't done anything and I changed jobs. So yeah, that happens.
Yeah, that's okay. It's funny because we look at the community reg registration for VMTN. How many new members do we get once a week? And we actually get 7,000 new registrations every week, right, on VMTN, which just shows you how many new customers come into the fold. But people tend to forget because they always ask me those metrics. Hey, how's your membership? How are you doing? What's your metrics look like? And I always have to remind people that we do get 7,000 new people a week, but how many of those accounts go inactive every week as well, right? Because it's kind of like Disney does movies, and they do movies for 13-year-olds, right? And they're perfect for my parents died, but I'm becoming an adult, and there's always a challenge. And so there's a time period that it's good to be watching those movies that Disney produces. And it's the same thing with vExperts and other people. There's an arc of how long you're going to be in the program before you move on, before you retire, before you die, right? Like there's a number of people coming in, they stay in the program for 10, 15, 20 years, and they tail out at the end. At least that's for VMTN. And I think there is some natural progression that happens for vExperts as well, right? And then some people just love it and stay there and stay happy in the bell curve and stay at the top and never slide down that long tail until they've moved on to do other things. But that's a natural progression as well. We got X number of new people. We got X number of heavy lifters that are right in the middle. Then we get some of these that are tail ending. And I think that's why some programs actually have I forget the name of when you get forever for VMworld, they call you once you've been to 10 VMworlds, they put you in a classification where you're good forever, right? Like because you've been to enough of them that they don't want you to drop out, so you just become grandfathered in because you made it past that long curve threshold. But we don't do that. But certainly other programs do have that term. What do you when you're alumni? That's the alumni. And so different of some of these community programs, just instead of running them out, they stick them in an alumni program, which gives them some rights because they just contributed so much over the years that they just deserve to always have the title, right? And we're probably
emeritus status for the vExpert program.
Yeah, we should probably do something like that because some of these guys, especially on community platforms or community running vMugs or whatever, they've done it for so long, right? That, even if you have a heart attack and your brain doesn't work anymore, but you're still in a wheelchair and shaking, trying to sip Jello from a straw, you should still be able to become a vExpert, right? You have that alumni. That's a sad state of life when when you start looking at the curve of your life and how long are you going to be active. But I think that's a cool thing to do, right? And certainly 2020 changes this curve a little bit, right? Like
absolutely does.
So Tony Foster, you've been quiet, but since you're there smiling, maybe you will unmute yourself. And the question for you is, do you see logic behind, you work in the industry, you work, I think, for EMC still. Do you see that in your own career? Do you see, things ebb and flow? You're muted.
Very much so.
I can hear.
One of those.
Oh, there, I can hear. Yeah, okay. I was lagging.
Okay, I'm like, wow. Yeah, I actually do see the ebb and flow, and it does do that. For me personally, it's about a 4 to 5 year cycle where I will see stuff pick up, slow down, and then repeat. So I see that with others that I work with and others that I interact with, and everybody has really a different time scale that they work with, but I think everybody has a time scale.
Yeah, I think so. I think we all go through that, different career elements. And even when I came to VMware, I was like, okay, I'm going to make this like a 3-year stint, maybe 5 years, 3 to 5 years. That's going to do. Then I'm going to move on because I want to do other fun, cool things, right? And then I never moved, right? It's just one of these days. So yeah, there is ebb and flow with that. So Corey, those are the big things. The second topic that I have for you that I think is worthy to talk about for people that have made it this far, which is kind of the boring stuff, is the subgroups, right? And what do we do for vExperts, right? Because I think every year everybody applies because it's the party. It's at vExpert. You get to meet Pat. He comes and thanks everybody. You come to VMworld and everybody gives you little vExpert branded fun stuff because we have a program that encourages our partners to build vExpert logos and give them out to vExperts. And so we make a attempt to, and it all revolves around VMworld. And this year, and even I have I think 50 or 60K in budget to go do cool stuff with vExperts, right? Where we bought everybody a Raspberry Pis last year. We went and rented the ping pong. Was it ping pong? I think ping pong bar last year at the US, and in Europe we did something else. So we spend maybe 100K on everybody throughout the whole event season. And this year we didn't do any of that, right? And it was hard to even organize where do we go. So we did Discord with Digital Orbital Jigsaw with those guys, and that was fun. But that was basically all we did, right? And so the subgroups for me are that give back activity. We do give back. We do send mail. How often do you communicate people in the vExpert program? Once a month, once every other month, twice a month, something like that. So what do you give back, and what are the give backs? And then the sub programs, I know they give back as well.
One of the things value-wise, is tangible, right? So I'll talk about VMware licenses, right? So for those that don't know, all of the vExperts receive licenses to our product, right? And they receive a 1-year license, right? And so you get to put our software in your lab, tinker with it, do your thing with the lab with the software. So that's something really cool and unique that you really can't get anywhere else, right? Who else gives you licenses to all their products, right? So, but the sub programs, we've got many sub programs. We've got application management, cloud providers, NSX, HCX, EUC, security, vExpert Pro, and application modernization, right? And so if you're talking, blogging, doing social around those different topics, or let's say you're doing many topics, they include those, you can apply for those sub-programs, right? So let's say you're talking NSX on your blogs, or you're doing speeches, or even written a book, or those different evangelistic activities around NSX, you can apply for, both vExpert and NSX. And in those sub-programs, you get direct access to a program manager who's dedicated to the vExpert NSX program. They do calls, they do emails, and some of the calls are product roadmaps, features, and as well as Blogger early access programs, right? And so I typically work with the comms team quite a bit, and for let's say Vmworld, right? We've got a lot of announcements that come out, and so they'll reach out to me and say, hey, we want to do an announcement around vSphere, right? So we want to talk to the vExperts who specialize in vSphere or any other category. Let's just go back to NSX, specialize in NSX. Can you deliver us some folks that we can talk to, right? And so what I'll do is I'll reach out to the program manager, right, who in this case would be Susan Wu, and I'd say, Susan, could you go through your list of the vExperts who specialize in NSX, who are talking about NSX, and can we give that list over to comms team so we can set up a meeting for a session that goes over all of the product features that we're going to release in the full announcement. And then what those vExperts do is they take that information, and this happens, typically 3 to 5 days before the announcement. They take that information and they prepare their blog articles. And then once the embargo lift date and time happens, they push out their stuff, right? And so we retweet it, we go out and do marketing around that. And so you're getting a whole new audience, as well as your audience seeing the value that you are creating, right? Based on the work that you've done as a vExpert, right? And so you get that front center interaction with the business unit and with the comms team.
Nice. Yeah. I definitely appreciate that. I think that the engagement with sub-programs are good. The licenses are good. I think those are nice. I think there's also just brand. You're almost an ambassador to VMware as well, right? So you get branded as a vExpert, and we had a couple of these issues where some vExperts were not interacting appropriately, and those were escalated to us because the company thinks vExperts are kind of an extension of VMware, right? Because you do have the vExpert logo, that we do evaluate your character, how you're doing, what you're saying. You actually become a brand ambassador to VMware as a vExpert, and then we expect a certain behavior from people that are kind of branded a vExpert. And then if there's issues, people will come to us going, "Hey, I'm working with these people. These are our brand ambassadors," right? And so there is a responsibility to that, but then also that acts as a benefit because you're seen as a vExpert, which
Yes.
means you're supposed to be an expert on what we do and are working to help others understand what we do. Right.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's also part of that value prop, which is given. We give stickers. We create that brand for people, but then also I think that brand ambassador world also applies into the partner ecosystem, where partners will respect you as a brand expert. That's why they give out vExpert things, because they want you to come interact with them as well, right? So this gives you a little bit of a leg up on probably getting licenses from partners, getting software from partners to understand what the whole solution stack is, not just the core one from VMworld.
Right.
VMware.
Yeah, we'll do partner sessions, for vExperts, where we go over kind of the same thing with VMware, right? Not only like, hey, here's our product, here's how it works. It's, hey, here's our product. This is what we're doing with our product. This is the value prop for your customers with this product. And so we'll do a whole, 1 hour sessions with a product team on a Zoom call, right, with all of the vExperts. And we record it. So if you miss it, we give it out, in a recording area in the vExpert portal,
Right.
which is nice. But yeah, VMware partners, and they're nice gifts. We've seen jackets, we've seen nice backpacks, we've seen engraved like beer mugs. We've seen some really, really cool things. And some of the sub programs will do the same thing, right? Some sub programs send out hats, thank you letters, some shirts, a jacket, a sweatshirt. They've done various things as well. And that's up to the business units.
Right. That makes sense. Matt, transitioning a little bit because we have like 10 or 15 minutes left here. I do have a hard stop at the top of the hour, but that vExpert's great. Influencers, right? I've talked about the Influencer 100, but what I want to talk to you about is, how does a vExpert become a super influencer? I know that you've been working at VMware on contract here to talk about to help us organize super influencers, and I think we call them platinum influencers, or I call them super influencers. But these are influencers that actually can sell and get money for doing things, right? Like going to event, talking, speaking. And I know that we've hired some podcasters who I would put in a classification of super influencers. I know that you can tell us a little bit about the TED Talk super influencer we hired. And then looking at my metrics, the super influencers who got the most traffic and regs were actually the podcast influencers, right? When I looked at my VMworld metrics on how many regs we got. So let's talk about super influencers a little bit, and how do people become super? What's a super influencer, and how do they become a super influencer in your opinion?
Well, it has to start at the very beginning, doesn't it, Eric? You have to share what you know. And that can be done in a variety of formats and on a variety of platforms. The ones that do it well share across the entire social ecosystem, if you will. They are blogging, they're vlogging, they're doing so on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, any social platform that's out there, because when you look at that super influencer type program, they don't limit themselves to one type of media. They try to brand themselves with a unique message in a given, let's say, security, and try to get that out to the broadest influence as possible. So they want to narrow in on a speciality, but then spread that across multiple social platforms. And that's the ones that we have really seen that do it well and do it the best, is narrow in on a speciality, obviously sharing it to the best way that they do it, and then going forth on multiple social platforms. But it starts out is the listeners out there to build up that brand, and that they're listening along, and how do I get there? How do I become this, an influencer in general? You have to share what you know, and you have to do so in a way that is repeatable and comfortable. If you're the type of person that does a blog, great. But there's so much other great way to put content out there. We've seen so many other persons this year switch over to vlogging. They've created their own YouTube channels with demonstrations and whatnot. We've seen great event organizations, virtual event organization through our Vmug leaders. That we have content that is being put together in the local community, or presenters that may have been a little bit timid to present in front of a group of peers, they might be a little bit more comfortable to present in front of a virtual audience. And a lot of that, again, it's facilitating that action. It's getting that content out there and producing it on a regular basis, and letting people know about it, and then just building upon it. Take feedback that you get from the community. If there's a tweak there, that's whatnot, be receptive to that feedback. Always provide some type of feedback mechanism, and don't just, you don't want to feed the trolls, as they say, but you want to be receptive to a little bit of the criticism, and just publish consistently. And that's the ones that we've even seen. You had mentioned the speaker that we had for the special event at Vmworld this year, Karen Elizari, who's a security researcher with Tel Aviv University. That's how she started. It was small blogs, then moved on to vlogs, and then eventually got picked up for a local TED event, and then that TED event went viral. It is still one of the most viewed security type TED Talks, even 4 years after she has originally published it, and she's updated it since then. So I would encourage our listeners to go out there and hit the TED platform and look up Karen Elizari. It's a wonderful talk. She's a fantastic speaker, incredibly engaging. So just, you have to put it out there to be consumed. You have to build your brand awareness, and that starts with producing content on a regular basis. So
to summarize and to frame this a little bit, like the super influencers have managed to build enough following. And I think when we were looking to do some super influencer engagement, we were looking for like 20,000 followers or more, right? Like that would influence a large enough people that, and then we were looking at audiences beyond the vExpert audience, right? Or beyond the virtualization audience. So topics that, could scale across a large number of companies, right, also was a good one to have, because what Karen did was just do security, and security applies to 100 different industries, right? So one thing was make your topic such that it's just beyond just one company, so that way if you're good at one company's ecosystem but then it can apply to others, those other companies will maybe hire you to come influence your followers on those same topics, right? So that's what I noticed, was that they were in topical areas that were multi-company, right? Now, not that I want to convince all the vExperts listening, or ecosystem people, that they should just go off and start doing all of our competitors and everybody, but I would say that that's what I noticed, right? And that that had enough followers, like the podcasters that had 10,000 or 20,000 or 50,000 listeners on their podcasts, because the numbers matter, right? Like reaching a large enough audience. And what you described was how they got there, which was good. And then the dollars, I thought it would be worth just mentioning. Like in a real sense, the cheaper people were maybe $7,000 for a couple interactions, right? A couple pieces of content that went out on their channels, that they pushed out on their channels, maybe over the course of 3 or 4 weeks, right? Couple times a week. And then it went up from there, from $7,000 to $10,000 to to 15K to the top was 30K for an engagement. So that's
we saw 30 to 50K fairly consistently. That was not an outlandish figure. So that once you are at even a mid-tier, I mean, we're talking not even hundreds of thousands of followers. We're talking tens of thousands of followers. That it's changed the game, and it's absolutely there. This is a very lucrative, very real way to make a career and a living in our modern society. It is to be recognized as a key influencer, to build a brand, and to get this out there. And people are doing it, and they're doing it frequently.
I think the vlog part of it was a big transition. Like, so from going to blog to going to video blogging, right, where you're actually creating that connection with people that are watching, was also one of those things that I saw that helped, right? Like, because you're not only producing great content, but then you're getting a persona, a face, a recognizable face, which was also good. But it was all in the numbers. So when you talk about influencers, there is, it's a channel's numbers. How many people do you influence, right? Interesting takeaway that I got, and I don't know what you think about this, Matt, because this is the first time we really ran an influencer program, right, where it was just influencers. It's one thing to influence, but I'm not sure how valuable the whole thing was versus having an influencer engagement model, right? Which is where vExpert's land, where I felt like the influencer did drive a large number. They reached a large number. The impression was out there. But if you look at how many actually people came to the event, so Vmworld and VMware Code are both of the events that we ran, we were only getting maybe 10 or 15% coming to the event. So we reached 100%. So every 100 people that we reached and they would come and reg, only 15 of them actually came to the event. So that was an interesting learning from my perspective, that you can get an impression and get a reach, but that doesn't mean you're going to have somebody actually come and be part of your ecosystem.
No, it doesn't. But we also have to put that in the context of a virtual event, right? We know that 10 to 15% isn't outside of what has been an industry norm. So let's say we have 100,000 reg, to see only 10 to 15,000 participants. That's not necessarily anything outside of what other major players have seen for their events as well. And we did see, as we ran these campaigns, that although it wasn't an exact corollary, that there was a significant lift, a noticeable data-driven lift, that when our campaign started with our super influencers, that registrations did increase. So I would acknowledge your point that yes, that registrations do not necessarily mean an actual attendance, but to get in attendance, you always need a reg. So it's a little bit of a cart and the horse, so to say. So yes, that ultimately, to put a dollar value on it for what's out there to see and to bring in members of the community as a whole. And when I say community as a whole, so let's say security, so persons that may have not looked at Vmworld before, sure, that's exposure that's out there. So you have to build that brand awareness. You have to get that out there. And just because they register, are they actually going to show up? That doesn't necessarily mean that they would show up for the event. But again, as everyone knows, the content is there for free. So many recorded sessions, they might be coming in and consuming content and looking at something on demand.
Yep. Well, we're at the top of the hour. I did say we have a hard stop, so I will do a short vBarbecue report. Tony Foster, I know that I did barbecued pizza. So I've been getting into, do you really need to buy a pizza oven to make a pizza on a charcoal grill? And the answer is it's great if you can have 500 degrees inside your Weber, right? That's what a pizza oven gets you 800 degrees on that stone. But if you put a piece of stone in and then put your pizza on it and put the lid on it, you can make a pretty good pizza. So we have made some pepperoni pizza. Yeah, the key to pizza is in the sauce and the dough, right? So, but you can heat up your grill and make yourself a nice barbecue pizza. It's pretty easy to do.
Awesome. Yeah, this week I did steak, and it's winterizing the barbecue and stuff.
Yeah, it is it's at that time where in another couple of months we're going to get to see the Tony Foster the short run around the house and snowman dive, right? Like
Same
yes.
Yeah. I did a brisket. It was a 33-hour cook. Right?
No.
So smoke it, turn the smoker on to 180. And brisket, you typically want to pull at 180. So there was about a 15-hour stall where it just sat at about 140 degrees and did not even go up a single temperature for 15 hours, right? And so you have to let it wait to get towards, past that stall, and then that climb to about 170, and then you got to turn it up just a hair to get the internal to 180, right? So it took 33 hours.
Now, is that just because you had it on such a slow heat smoke that's just the length, and that's what you do? And how did you know how to set that pellet feeder to the right amount to have that slow heat?
Yeah, so on my smoker, it's got a dial on what temp you want it to run at. So I do that, and then sometimes it'll go plus minus 10 degrees, usually on the high side. So sometimes it's how many quarters you stack underneath your lid to allow enough air in to keep it at 180, right? So it's a couple little tricks to it.
All right, fun stuff. Great to see everybody. We'll be back next week with Kit Colbert. We're going to be talking about IT careers on the VMware Community Podcast. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.